people in the modern day, I have to ask you about this, kind of casually talk about the new Civil War in America.
Yes.
As somebody who studied the Civil War, do you think our country today is divided to a degree that's on the verge of something like the Civil War of the 19th century?
No, I really don't, and I'm not, and I don't mean to play down the degree to which that we are divided. We are divided. We do resemble the 1850s now, in that I think the first impulse on the part of people on either side of the political spectrum is to attribute the worst to the other side, and to not acknowledge any good on the other side, to attribute the worst possible characteristics to the other side, and to have inflammatory rhetoric coming from various directions that really seeks to sort of stir up as much unhappiness and controversy as possible. I think we're like the 1850s in that way. But in terms of whether we're really at the point where the kind of actions that I've dealt with in my study of the Civil War, I don't think we're anywhere near that. And I mean, I really don't. If we get there, that will be heartbreaking, but I just don't see it. I don't see physical assaults against members of Congress on the floor of the Congress. I don't see it. It's states talk about seceding if things don't go. Texas talked about seceding when Obama was elected. California talked about seceding when Trump was elected. But you know what? Neither one of them called a secession convention and had delegates go to it. When Lincoln was elected, they called conventions, they voted to secede, and they left the nation. So that's different to me than talking about it and threatening it and posing different scenarios.
Are there genuine structural parallels between that time and now? If you can linger on that.
Well, I mean, the states structurally, a state can call a convention if it wants to, and to talk about whatever it wants to talk about. So I suppose that structure is still in place, but I haven't seen any serious movement toward doing something like that.
Yeah, and I think there's a real cohesion and resilience to the union, as we've talked about. I think people are, despite the discourse and the bickering, there's a real love of nation that maybe is not often expressed explicitly, but there is a sense that we're all in this kind of together, and then we're yelling at each other, kind of like you have a family at Thanksgiving dinner, where there's very passionate yelling and arguing, but there's a kind of assumption that we're still a family. At least that's the hope. You know, one of the questions that the Civil War asked is, what is America? So I have to ask you, from over 50 years of studying the Civil War, it's like, what do you think? What is this country? What is this union? What is the core that makes us who we are?
Well, I think in a lot of ways it's much of what it was in the mid-19th century. I still think it's a magnet. I mean, we're far more diverse now as a people than we were during the Civil War, because we continue to act in the same way as it did in the Civil War, only they're not Germans and Irish. People come from everywhere here now. I mean, they literally come from everywhere here now. And everybody doesn't find a nice, easy road here by any means. And there are lots of things wrong with the United States, but I still think the United States has a role in the world that's unlike, I won't say any other place, but I can't think of a place that's quite like it, that has so many people coming from so many places who somehow manage to fit into this mosaic. And then I think most people do have a way to fit into the mosaic, and then they become part of the old mosaic when the next group of people who are not like them come in, and those are the ones who are the new ones fitting in.
Yeah, sometimes I think about, sorry to romanticize it, but because I do think that Barack Obama is one of the great speech makers of my lifetime, and I sometimes imagine what Lincoln would have thought if he could attend an Obama speech, if he saw that Obama became president, that an African American became president of the United States of America. it seems like such a trivial thing to say, but I think it's not trivial at all. It's one of the great accomplishments of our country.
I think one of Lincoln's great attributes was his humanity comes through so many things that he wrote. His real appreciation for people who faced long odds, worked against the odds, didn't begin with advantages in their favor and so forth. I
Yeah.
think he and his ability to grow, I think he would have handled that actually pretty well, much better than many other people I can think of from the mid-19th century. I think he had genuine humanity. I don't think you can read all the things he wrote and not come to that conclusion. He also, but so does he check all our boxes now? Of course he doesn't. Was he prejudiced by our standards in some ways? Of course he was. But I think he would have handled that pretty well, and he would have still been really tall. Even in our time, he'd be way taller than most people.
Yeah. What 250th birthday, what gives you hope about the future of America?
What gives me hope, I'm a grouchy, not optimistic person in
Oh,
a lot
yeah?
of ways. Yeah, I am. I am.
You had some moments of optimism today.
I was just going to say, but I do have moments of optimism, and one of them I have is in the resiliency of this republic. I really do have, and it's genuine optimism. I'm not just, and I know a lot of people will think that it's naive, but I really, because I see what it's been through, and it's emerged,
Mhm.
and it's gone forward, and the trajectory, and this is something that Obama has commented on, and as have many others, the trajectory is in the right direction.
Mhm.
With lots of things you wish were different, but the overall trajectory is in the right direction. I really do believe that, and that's why I tend to be, in that regard, optimistic.
I think there's a few folks on the interwebs that talk about the decline of the American empire, even using the word empire. I'm one of the folks who thinks that America's flourishing. And it is a beacon of hope and freedom in the world. And there's a lot to criticize: the militarism, and a lot of different aspects that are hypocritical, and is not always living up to the great ideals that it supposedly represents, but at least is striving towards that. And it is still a home for the great diversity of humans, as you've mentioned, that I think is one of the great, beautiful aspects about this country. And the full mess of it, the drama, the arguments, the heated passion, the chaos, the thing that feels like chaos, but I think ultimately will lead to progress. I love all of it. I think it is the greatest nation on earth. So on this 250th birthday, I hope there's 250 years more. And I'm truly grateful that there's somebody like you studying our great history. And I'm grateful for this wonderful conversation today.
I appreciate the invitation. It's been fun.
Thank you, Gary.